everybody, and welcome to the Harry Potter Trading Card Game Revival Podcast. My name is Sammy,
I'm Reese.
And I'm Woman.
and today, because it's the end of the year, we're essentially going to just kind of give our thoughts and our wrap up to 2024 because a lot has happened this year, and then also talk about kind of our thoughts for 2025, what we have planned, give you guys a bit of a sneak peek into what we're doing on the back end and preparing for all of you to play with and use and just kind of talk about all of that stuff. We're going to go through a bunch of different things. And we're going to start first by just kind of giving a quick review of the tournaments, our thoughts on it, kind of what happened in them and whatnot. So this year we had 3 tournaments, I believe, and we're going to have one more in December that's going to be a single day tournament. So we're up to 4 tournaments a year, which is pretty exciting. And I just want to talk really briefly about them, give each of our thoughts. So I'll start and then you two can kind of jump in. So with the tournaments, I think my thought is mainly that they were a lot of fun and they kept growing throughout the year, which was really cool. And in general, I just kind of saw a lot of like control-y decks, and then surprisingly, characters ended in the top spot in half of the tournaments, which is cool, interesting, not really what I expected. So yeah, those are my really brief thoughts. My one last thing will be that I think Goblet of Fire, the tournament in November, because of Goblet of Fire, probably had the most diverse range of decks and the most interesting decks to me, just because of the diversity. What do you guys think about the tournaments?
Yeah, it definitely became a lot more spread with the variety. I mean, I don't think there was a single deck that was similar in the Goblet of Fire tournament, the November tournament, which was great to see. It also means we're kind of, as a community, probably not too sure what the good decks are yet. So it's hard to keep an eye on what might be too strong as far as cards or strategies at the moment.
Yeah, I think also that tournament was coming off of the back of the banned and restricted list. If we're okay with jumping down a tiny little bit, and with it, of course, hitting cards like Invisible Ink, Scribblifores that were played in a lot of the decks that were placing highly in the tournaments before that, in say the February and May tournaments of this year.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
that's a really good point that it is coming off the back of both the banning and our largest new set of 120 cards. And I think those two things together definitely allowed people to have this variety of decks. And I'm curious in the tournament in about a week and then in the first tournament in 2025, what's going to kind of come out of the November tournament and what's going to just be new and wasn't in that previous one.
Yeah, I have my suspicions things will sort of fall back to a little bit what we expect to be normal. I think the character control or the character combo deck with Oliver probably will stick around because it's so low to the ground as far as the lesson count goes, but it will have a bit of more of a target on its back winning the last 2 tournaments. And I think McGonagall will stick around, again, putting that big question mark on her, whether or not she's too strong. Is the Transfiguration lesson alone too good, or is the adventure clause still quite relevant on her?
I'd probably say that I think that with the BNR update back in June, hitting lesson control, I think definitely lowered the power of Minerva. I don't think that it makes her irrelevant, but I definitely think that that is not the main thing anymore. And maybe one of the reasons that we saw the diversity of decks in the tournaments after that, or in the one tournament that we've had after that, is because with a lot of the big generic destruction cards like Invisible Ink and Scribblifores being removed, these combo decks and these more diverse decks had room to breathe and actually be played without the fear of just being destroyed as soon as you played your cards. So I'm hoping that we continue in that direction. The decks can continue to be unique and interesting because of that. I'm not sure though, but I hope so.
Yeah, I just think that, control is one of the 3 pillars, I guess, of normal card game archetypes of like
Yeah.
aggro, mid-range slash combo and control of like that rock, paper, scissors. And I'm not sure if, since we didn't really see like a control deck in the previous tournament in 2024, like some lists were kind of running these odd Forbidden Corridor style like prison lock decks, but I'm not exactly sure if that's like the hard control or equated to the hard control that we've seen of other tournaments, if
I
that deck
mean,
is kind of still alive right now.
yeah, but
But
we did have the deboning lock deck, which was very much so just a control deck. And then the other like
eh,
big control one was Riss's deck starting Maxime, which while it didn't place in the top four, I think that was kind of like a pure control deck. And so we saw second place did get this deboning lock control-y thing.
Yeah, I've had my thoughts on and talked about it a little bit in our
Yeah.
previous episode, but I don't know if I consider that control or combo. It's kind of skirting the line.
I guess I can see that, yeah. Yeah.
And Rissa's meta Maxine deck is kind of control, but also like it's
Slash
weird.
prison-y. Yeah, it was definitely
Yeah.
a weird one. It was definitely more along the lines of control, just trying to slow you down as much as possible. But I don't know
Yeah.
if the strength is quite there, unfortunately.
I also don't really see it as like a hard control, like I'm going to kill everything that you play, and then I'm going to play my card that you can't answer and win the game that we
Yeah,
see in like other card games.
yeah, it's definitely more of a prison style deck where it's trying to stop you from playing things in general, as opposed to traditional control, which is like slow your opponent down and then remove all their stuff so they have to start again, but you don't. And
Yeah.
then slow them down until you get out that one or two cards that will either win you the game over a couple turns or on the spot. It's definitely wasn't a control deck in that sense. Definitely lean more towards those prison style decks, which is before you've played your cards, I want to stop you playing
Yeah,
things based
exactly.
on my best judgment or something like that.
Hmm.
I think the last thing I would say about the tournament personally is out of the November one, we had 16 decks that were playing, which was fantastic. Four played potions, three played Quidditch, and then the other three colors pretty much had like 10 decks each or something. They were very much so played. And Quidditch has been the lowest played color in all of our tournaments, pretty much. And so I'm hoping in 2025 we see a shift, especially with like Bumfing making the top four. Hopefully that deck can continue and we can see more Quidditch there and just other Quidditch-y stuff, especially with our next set coming out too. So just kind of, I don't know, a more even dispersing of the lesson types, I think would be cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, and not to hint too much from the next set and what people might guess it might be, but we're definitely hoping it's going to get one or two tools at least that can push it into competitive territory. It got a few from Goblet of Fire with the two new locations, probably particularly the lesson ramping location looks pretty good. And then it got a little bit of ramp in general, which it doesn't really use, but hopefully the next set can utilize that stuff a bit more and hopefully
Yeah.
give it a bit
You
of
know,
a little boost.
Riss, you also don't have to like dance around the topic of what the next set is.
I
I
do
think
think
I
we've talked
spoiled.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah. So we're gonna dive around the script a little bit. Yeah, the next set will come out sometime in the spring. Not sure the exact month yet. We are doing something a little different with it. Riss, I don't know if you want to tease any of that stuff, like the difference that we're doing with it, or if you just want to like pause or whatever.
We are definitely looking at doing something a little bit different with this set. I think in general, the design for pretty much all the sets so far has been very top down. And for those who don't know, top down means you take the theme or the ideas behind characters, locations, events in your story, and you fit them to, or you design cards around what those things are and how they feel. This set, although we do that, is a little bit more going to be built around the mechanics of the cards. And the particular reason for that is because we're going to be designing this set to try and be draftable, which is not a game style that has been done before for Harry Potter from the original sets or the revival ones. So it's going to be a bit different, and a lot of the cards' power levels will maybe not be as forefront as it has been in the most recent sets, at least, because we are trying to build a drafting environment to give everyone something new to try out. So cards will be purposely a little bit weaker, so that they can work well in that sort of design space.
I think that's a pretty good summary of it. And I do want to say that the drafting style of a set is not going to be every set that we make moving forward because it just requires a very specific kind of design for the set and whatnot. But we thought this would be a cool thing to try for this set. And if it works well and everybody likes it, we may do it more in the future. We will see. And the setting of the set is going to be the Quidditch World Cup and a lot of that stuff. Hopefully a lot of good Quidditch support. Quidditch is going to get like 10 more cards than all the other colors. So hopefully it gets a nice little boost and introduces some new Quidditch decks. We're really excited about it. I'm also very excited as Quidditch is my favorite color. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
If it's your
But
favorite color, I hope
yeah.
you're playing it in the one-day
Oh, I am.
tournament.
I am. I'm
Oh,
super
that's
excited.
good.
It's built around one card, and I'm super
Good,
excited
good, good.
about this deck.
I'm glad.
Well, I was gonna do one of two Quidditch decks, and I was gonna do the bumping deck, but
Hmm.
I decided the bumping deck was done in November. I'll do that again in the future, maybe, and I'm gonna do a different Quidditch deck in this tournament. So we will see what happens with that.
Yeah. Cool, cool.
But talking about sets, let's talk real briefly. We had two sets come out in 2024. We had Hogwarts History and Goblet of Fire. Hogwarts History was a mini set of 20 cards, really focused around the history of Hogwarts and that book from the books. And Goblet of Fire was kind of our first of four sets in the Goblet of Fire book block. And the cards were really designed to be a spattering of everything that did not fit into the theme of the other three sets of the block. So you really probably won't see any stuff from the Quidditch World Cup in this, or you didn't, sorry, in the Goblet of Fire set. You didn't see anything from like the Triwizard Tournament or whatnot in this set as well. It really was just here's generic Goblet of Fire stuff. So I want to talk about these two sets and our brief thoughts about them. I'm sure we'll go more in depth in the future for both of them. So let's start with Hogwarts History. It's been out for 7 months, I think, 8 months. I don't remember when it came
Something
out.
around there, yeah.
Yeah. So what are your guys' thoughts on Hogwarts History?
Hogwarts' History of the Card is a card that we need to watch out for because it
Yes.
does give quite a bit of easy recursion, as we saw in the November tournament with Riz's deboning lock deck. But
Agreed.
I think that it added a bunch of like staple cards, and it added also a bunch of new like characters that you can really play around with, either as starting characters like Godric Gryffindor, Ravenclaw. Actually, basically all of them can be a starting character, but also all of them can kind of function in your deck as well, which is
Mhm.
really neat to see and hard to really get for characters.
Yeah, that was definitely not easy getting the four effects on those characters. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
they do work in both instances. Obviously, some are stronger than others, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that the characters are a large centerpiece for the set and the book itself. So, which is good
Mhm.
to see the title piece. I think the characters have a way to go. Obviously, Helga and Gryffindor were the two most popular ones coming out
Mhm.
of the set. But I think
Yeah.
as we move along with more and more sets release, I think Rowena in particular will become stronger and stronger as we're sort of as a revival team designing for more ramp and more late stage pieces to come into play so that you can get some larger creature decks out and other
Yeah.
things like that. So I definitely think there's a lot of staples that came out of Hogwarts History, Stairs into Slides to Pulso, but there's, I think, a lot of cards to watch for in the future. The Grand Staircase, Hogwarts Kitchens, Invisibility Potion even one day may be
I
worth playing.
I think that what is it, Midnight Snacks also could be seen
Yep.
play.
Yeah, I've
And
seen more of
I
that than I thought I would.
Yeah, it's not bad. And I also think that one of the reasons why Godric Gryffindor and Helga Hufflepuff are played more than Ravenclaw and Slytherin, it's not like a knock on Ravenclaw and Slytherin. It's just that when you see the text one more action that turn, it's kind of like neurons activated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Like
Yep.
it's easy to like jump onto the easy or the easy power of plus one action
Yeah.
versus Ravenclaw, which is requires a very different deck building style. And Silos are Slytherin as well, and like the kind of hidden power of Slytherin, where you don't actually see like the overt effects of it, but it does slow your opponent down a lot if you can consistently proc him, which actually
Yeah.
it like fits the theming of Slytherin really well.
Yeah, he I don't think he gets played in the style we particularly thought of when designing him. He's more played just as extra damage and probably why he's not really played that often. When the idea was more to, as an aggro deck, you have a way to slow your opponent down even more by making their draw for turn irrelevant or very useless at the very least.
Yeah, I'm happy with how the set turned out. Definitely think that there's some cards that just need to be watched in good and bad ways for the future. We'll see what happens. And let's jump over to Goblet of Fire. That was released in June, I think. Came out with a June 1st ban list, if I remember correctly. And it was our largest set to date. A really quick kind of overview of Goblet of Fire. I mentioned it already, but we are planning to have four sets related to the Goblet of Fire book. And our thought process behind it was kind of going back to the Sorcerer's Stone block of cards, where the first set kind of had a bit of everything, and then the second set was more specified to Quidditch. The third set was specified to Diagon Alley. And we're going to do the same kind of thing with Goblet of Fire, which is why this set kind of has stuff from all over the place. So, what are your guys' thoughts on Goblet of Fire as a set?
It's a large spattering of lovely designed cards. There are amazing arts, amazing ideas, and different ways to tackle the game in it. I think it is definitely the best set we have, in my opinion, at least. And it's given us a lot of, as we can see from the previous tournament, it's given us a lot of tools that we didn't have before. The books, the new Guide to Advanced Transfiguration and the Fertilizer from Norway. What else
Those
do you
books are
have?
awesome, yeah.
All the starters as well, in like Bill as a generic searcher, Alistair as a build around, Spew, amazing, a Lymph, Reader. It's just a lot of great cards. It's definitely, in my opinion, the best set we've made.
Wow, wow, wow. You didn't talk about the best starting character of all time, my boy Weatherby.
God, I still hate that card. I hated that card from day one.
What? What? How can you hate Weatherby?
How can you not?
His effect is amazing. When you have to like trawl through most played cards to find the most played letters and then build your deck around that. Yes.
That's just
Amazing.
far too much thinking.
And obviously very good.
I think that, yeah, Goblet of Fire has opened up a lot of new deck strategies, some of which we've seen, some of which I don't think we saw in the November tournament. Like, I don't think we saw a Goblet of Fire deck. I don't think we saw a Moonlit Transformation Abraxan deck. We saw several Spew decks, but I think that there's still a lot more that we can do with Spew that hasn't been
No
seen yet.
Cadogan.
Like, yeah,
No Cadogan.
Cadogan, that's a big one. Maybe some things can be up with Wiggenweld Potion or the Wit Sharpening Potion suite.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point in that there's these Goblet of Fire strategies that we just haven't seen become tournament decks yet. And I'm sure people will bring them in the future. And I think one of the great things about Goblet of Fire is that it amplified previous decks in new ways. And that was really cool to see. So Rita, for example, you can throw that into a character deck, and now you have another way to kind of win with Rita if your other character strategy's not working. Or with Spew, that opened up some stronger options with the character deck and searching out Gryffindors, or it opened up stronger creature strategies with Rubius Hagrid. So I think amplifying the old decks is probably what I'm most excited about from Goblet of Fire, that it allows old decks to be kind of played.
Yeah.
There are so many things to be excited for from Goblet of Fire. I think another thing that has not been talked about anywhere that I've noticed, at least, except for very briefly during the design phase, is that we have creatures in other colors now, or other lesson types, sorry. We have Scarabeal in potions, and then Aggressive Dustbin in Transfiguration. Although they're not necessarily the best creatures, they're finally creatures in the other lesson types. So
Actually, yeah, I do want to talk about this really briefly. This entire thing that we've started doing, which I really like, which is taking these things that are really native to a particular color or card type and shifting them into other things. I was playing a game against somebody a couple of days ago, and they had animated armor and Monster Book of Monsters in play, and then a third creature, and I forgot what the third creature was. And I was testing out my tournament deck for the coming tournament, and one of the cards in it is Table Trouble. So I was able to discard two of his three creatures with Table Trouble because they're creature items, which was hilarious to me. I did not think the card was going to work in that kind of way. And I like that as we're shifting these creatures into different colors, and we have a match in a different color now as well, like as these things happen, there are these other interactions, and it's forcing, hopefully going to force people to have to think more creatively about their decks and the new ways in which their deck is at risk of being attacked by some other kind of card that typically wouldn't hit creatures.
do you guys have a favorite card from the Goblet of Fire?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's a hard question.
So it's only 120 to choose from.
Yeah, that's rough, man.
I would probably say, if I can call it one giant group, I really just like the 5 cost books that provide 2 power. They are all pretty much seeing play. There's some cool combos with them. I just think that those are probably some of the best cards from the set. But personally, if I chose one card, it'd be Orchard Pitch, because again, I love Quidditch. I love the idea of kind of ramping, and I love big Quidditch spells. So being able to get up there easier, I think is really cool.
If we discount my boy Weatherby, because he is really cool,
So cool.
and cannot be replaced in my heart. I think I would probably go with Tea with Moody.
Ah.
Don't quote me on it though. I haven't thought too much about this, but I think Tea with Moody is
Interesting.
very funny, in which
Yeah.
you can Tea with Moody into Tea with Moody into Tea with Moody into Tea with Moody.
I feel a storm deck coming.
I mean, you're done afterwards. You can't do anything else, but
Well, I'm disappointed that you guys didn't go with your real boy Tebow.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, my bad.
Actually, Plimpy, I believe, was Huamin's favorite during design. Plimpy was his boy.
Uh, no, not at all. Okay, maybe ironically.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
my favorite from the set probably Rita. I was very
Mhm.
surprised to see her when she got played because it's not one we played tested during Goblet of Fire. But when she came out and started putting down damage in the this Hermione Spew Oliver deck just as a side piece, I was like, oh, okay, that's actually a decent amount of damage. That's on par with sort of what Arthur does, sort of thing, which was interesting to see. So that's definitely on my radar as my favorite at the moment.
We definitely play tested her quite a bit in her previous iteration of counting the number of unique cards in play, which was not good when she counted your opponent's cards as well.
Yeah, and she was initially, I think, a draw card, and then she turned into a damage card, which is probably the better direction
Yeah.
for her. All really good cards. It was a good set. I'm super happy with it. I think people really enjoyed it. The art was also really cool. Yeah, I just really liked it as a whole. But
Yeah.
we released it on June 1st. I believe I said that earlier, and we also released a BNR update on June 1st. I believe the BNR update may have been our biggest one yet. Hopefully our biggest one ever, because I know most of us are not
Yeah.
like super crazy about BNR stuff. And so we
Yeah.
had what, 7 cards that got hit in various ways. 6 were banned, 1 was restricted to 1. Any thoughts about the BNR list before we move on?
Was it six band?
Yeah, so banned was Hager Needs
Yeah.
Help, Invisible Ink,
Oh,
Letters from No One, Scribble Force,
one
Debone,
shot.
or sorry, Wand Shop, and then Deboning was restricted.
Isn't that five?
Sorry, 5, yes. I only teach math. I can't count.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's okay.
But yeah, any thoughts about this list?
I think that it kind of nuked the lesson control archetype that we were seeing a lot of, and that led to a kind of stagnant meta in the past couple tournaments before the November one.
It's a good nuking. It's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Wanted to remove that
Yes.
play pattern from our game.
Yeah, I think it's not actually all that fun of a game when you can't play the game. We attempted to also preemptively nuke with the deboning restriction, but First has shown us that even at one, sometimes you can't play the game as well.
I mean, we will definitely have another conversation before June about the B and our update for then. Maybe deboning will be banned at that point. We will see.
But also we were hitting some of like the last holdouts of the generically strong adventures from the '05 sets. First was Caught by Snape, and then we hit Escaping the Dursleys, and now Hagrid Needs Help and Letters from No One have been seen on the ban list, which I'm honestly okay with this. Like, I don't think that they were healthy for the metagame, but also it's kind of like a where are adventures going? And I think people are still figuring out like what are the adventures that I should run in my deck when I can't go to these like generic ones.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that before, how hard the adventures are to design. And maybe we'll figure it out and have that eureka moment one day about like, okay, this is how they should be designed and this is why, and we'll get something moving forward. But I think we can all agree that's probably doesn't feel like it's on the horizon at all.
I don't know what's happening with adventures. I have no idea.
Uh,
I have no idea.
it's okay. I'm on a team with Sammy, who's I don't know what's going on with adventures, and Grizz, who's can we just remove adventures from the game? And I
Yeah,
have to deal with this.
it's a whole thing.
They were definitely a very unique card type for a game.
Yeah, yeah. And for some reason, everyone keeps looking to me because in my first couple tournaments, I was playing adventure decks, and now it's, oh yeah, Woman's the adventure guy.
I mean, I know it's
Ugh.
definitely not me. That's all I know. It's not me. I did like the ban list for the most part. There were cards I did not want banned that got banned, but we have a system down to make it as fair as possible so that no one person can kind of withhold something either moving forward or staying unbanned. So the group of cards I think has led to the ability of more diverse decks in the tournaments and people to be able to play more things they want to and make a bit of a more balanced game. So regardless of what happened this year in terms of the BNR, I think it overall has done good things. I think all of us are kind of in agreement that we don't really want to ban cards ever if we can. There's really just one that I have in mind for next year. I'm sure that there might be 1 or 2 that get banned, but I think we're all kind of in the boat of let's not try to ban many anymore.
I forgot. Which one were you not too keen on getting banned?
One
It was a
shop.
while
Wand
ago.
Shop, I still
One
don't
shop.
want Wand Shop banned because
Interesting.
like I fully understand the reasons that people said. I understand from the
Yeah.
design perspective and everything, but in my heart,
Yeah.
I'm just like it opens up
Yeah.
other stuff, and I love that. So it is what it is. And I do
It's
think that deboning should have been one. I did vote ban entirely instead
mm.
of restrict. So that may come up
Yeah,
again in June.
that may happen in 2025. We're keeping an eye on deboning. It's
Oh
a
yeah.
problematic card in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was another ban for deboning, and if no one was agreeing on banning, at least restrict. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
it's definitely tipping in that way on the scales now
yeah, we'll
in the
see.
team.
And what's the card that you're keeping an eye on, Sammy? I'm curious.
I am keeping an eye on Snuffling Potion.
Snuffling Potion. That's a blast
Yeah,
from the past.
it is, and I think there's just a lot of unintended things that come up with a card when you're playing it that we're not seeing when we're designing and that are coming up in games that just kind of make for unfun and just you don't get to play the game kind of games. And I don't think that's a good direction. And because the card just interacts unintentionally with so much, just removing it would probably be best. So that's the card I'm really paying attention to, more from a design perspective and a deck building perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Because I don't see very many Snuffling Potion decks currently.
I think it's because it's probably an unfun card, kind of like deboning. We didn't really see a lot of deboning deck because it's unfun and people don't like to play that kind of card. And then somebody played it and look what he did.
Well, it's also that Snuffling is kind of hard to build a deck around.
Yes and no. This is an entirely different conversation. Yes and no. Probably best left for elsewhere, but yes.
Sure, sure.
Uh,
I'd say to end the banned and restricted off as well. There are quite a few cards on the watch list. I don't want the listeners to think that we've got crazy Sammy going after us. No, that Snuffling Potion, it's running rampant. We have a very reasonable, well thought out watch list at the moment. Obviously, there's big talk in the community very often about McGonagall as the starter, and then we watch other things like Draco and Seamus, Fred and George, which obviously with most of those adventures being hit now, the twins are less of a problem. But there are always a few ones that we definitely keeping an eye on and watching
Yeah.
for any overperformance.
Are you sure our ban list isn't just Crazy Sammy going after cards that he hates?
No, because Wand Shop wouldn't be on there if that
You were
was the
overruled
way
on
it
that
was.
one, but
I was definitely overruled, yes.
We need the
but
design
everything
space.
else.
We can't
I
have One
know,
Shot be
I
the only
know.
ramp car.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's enough
yeah.
about banned and restricted.
So there were a lot of other cool things that happened in 2024. The French community actually reached out and wanted to start becoming more involved with the revival cards, which was really cool. So I worked with some of the French people and we translated Heir of Slytherin into French for them, created a page on our website for them that they built themselves and worded themselves and everything. So it's cool to see the game growing into other communities and other communities embracing the revival cards and whatnot. My hope is that we could do some type of thing once we get more French cards for all of the sets where we can kind of have maybe like a North American, an Australian, and like a European situation happening. And then we have like a world tournament, like an actual Triwizard tournament. But that's a lot of planning and that's down the road of very far, far away. But it's cool to have the French involved now too.
And you have some large dreams for how large our community is.
I do. Well, I know there's a group of like 20-ish at least French players who do play on a regular basis. And they do actually have like a tournament system that they used to do, at least when COVID started. So there are a lot of players. It's just giving them the translations to be able to come in and play with us, which I think is the big thing. Another big thing that happened this year was a lot of updates to Accio. For example, we did a small rebuild, and in this rebuild, we also added in some new features, changed some of the interfaces and whatnot. One of the things you will notice is that there's a homepage that should be changing now with the seasons, the holidays, that kind of thing. Kudos to Riss for making this happen. It is really, really cool. For example, right now, he switched the background recently to a drawing by Vlad, who does a lot of our artwork, and there's snow falling. And actually, if you click on the homepage, it will play some music too. So all of that is really cool. Kudos to Riss for doing that, and thank you for doing that. We also, again, thank you to Riss. Do you want to talk about the deck builder that came out a couple of days ago?
Yeah, well, obviously, since getting a bit more control over Accio and all that, it's kind of a canvas for us to do whatever we want now. So you'll be seeing a lot of things pop up and new features being added to Accio as the revival team decides exactly where we want Accio to be sitting and where we want to be on the site. But obviously, one of the biggest things for the community is just a straight deck builder, something a bit more beyond the Untapped, where it's sort of just a text-based one. Now you've got the visuals of the cards and everything, so it's a lot easier to build on, and it has all the features there for your sideboards and importing, exporting, displaying for printing onto physical cards. So it definitely was the top of the list as far as new features we wanted for Accio.
Yeah, it is a really cool thing. Hopefully everybody who has used it over the past couple of days has really been enjoying it. I know it's been just super useful to be able to have all of that there and the ways that you can sort on Accio while searching for the cards and everything. Riss did a really great job building all of that out. So thank you again for that. And as he mentioned, pay attention in the future. We will have at least one new large feature coming out in 2025, which is really, really exciting.
And lots of little ones.
Yes.
There's plenty we can have. If there's any listeners out there that have features they want, chuck a request on the Accio channel on Discord, and we'll see where they get prioritized and if there's a general want from the community for them.
Yeah.
And if anybody is a coder and wants to help with any web dev stuff, just reach out to me on Discord or post in the Accio channel and I'll reach out to you and we can chat depending on kind of what you want to do and what we need and whatnot. Any last thoughts about 2024 before we give some previews on 2025?
I can't believe it's over.
Do you mean the year for Harry Potter, or do you mean that 2024 flew by and doesn't feel like it was actually here?
Listeners can decide on what I mean.
Overall, I think it was a good year, a fun year, a lot of big changes, a lot of stuff happened. I think it was just a really great year, and I'm very excited for 2025, building off of 2024 stuff.
Yeah, I feel that this was quite an exceptional year for our card game. It really accelerated with Hogwarts to History and Goblet of Fire and the new Accio build. Everything seems like it's just about to roar with all the changes, and hopefully we can grow the community in the same way as well.
Yeah, actually, two things I just thought about was this year we also launched or hyper launched or started using incredibly a lot our YouTube channel and posting a lot of gameplay videos. So if you just want to watch people play and see how these decks play out, there's a lot of great players and great decks. You can go watch stuff on the YouTube channel, and that is sorted by tournaments as well as some help videos. We also released a deck building video this year. So just a lot of cool stuff on YouTube. Go check that out. And then we also started this podcast this year. So just more ways to kind of get people engaged and get talking about the game and whatnot. But with that, let's talk about 2025 and just kind of give some quick previews for the year. So we talked already, the next set's going to be coming out in the springtime. It's going to be based around Quidditch World Cup and that part of the Goblet of Fire book. It's going to be draftable. All things we're all super excited about to see how this works, to see how the set's received and whatnot. We may have a second set this year. It's not really been firmed up and decided on, but we may have a second set, whether that's going to be the third large set for Goblet of Fire at the end of the year or a mini set at some point. We may have a second set, which is cool.
I think signs are pointing to no for that one, but we'll see.
I mean, maybe a mini set, maybe.
We'll see. The
We'll see.
R&D2 team's going to need something to do.
Yeah, but well, I have my own thoughts on that, but just I think that set pacing has been a little fast, so I would push back on getting out two sets next year, but we'll see.
Yeah, if we do like a large set and a mini set, I feel like that makes the pacing a little bit better, especially if the mini
Yeah,
set
it's a
is
little
more
better.
like a complement as opposed to new things. I think that also kind of separates it too.
I definitely don't think Triwizard Tournament is coming out next year.
Yeah, if that third
yeah.
set does, it'll be like November or December. If not, it'll be probably next 2026 spring or something.
I'm expecting like 2026 spring or something.
Yeah.
But, we'll see. We'll figure it out.
We also plan to have at least 4 tournaments again this year. That is the hope. We're going to try to do every like 2 to 3 months, similar to this year. I know this year got thrown off a little bit just because of Goblet of Fire release, and like it was weird to have a tournament like the same month it was released and whatnot. Hopefully 4 tournaments, that's the goal. Hopefully we can do some other stuff with just events, with the drafting that's coming along, with Quidditch World Cup and that set. Who knows what's going to happen with the potential to do events based on drafting. We were talking, Riss and I, this morning about it briefly. We'll see. But But in order to see a list of all of our projections for what's going to happen for the upcoming year, you can look on our website homepage, and we usually update that with a rough estimate of when we expect to do some things. So check that out in the new year for a new schedule.
You have a schedule?
Well, it's like a rough. Usually I'll put like the tournament months on it, and then usually like, oh, we're doing a summer release or something like that. The BNR list always comes out June 1st. If there is an update, if there is no update, we'll just announce, hey, there's no update, and we just move on with life. So look on that homepage for that. And that quick plug of website also has a bunch of links for new players, which takes you to a how to play video, how to build a deck, and how to use Accio and Untap. And then there's a bunch of returner player stuff. So go check out that if you have a bunch of questions as well. And the resources are on there too. Some other stuff for 2025, we plan to release high definition sets for as many as we can of the original 5 sets that we still need to. The next one for Quidditch Cup is either going to be out at the time of this podcast or should come out like a couple of days after this podcast. So that's very exciting. Thank you to Granny and Bishop for working on that and whatnot. It is fantastic. And they're going to be print ready as well as playable online, so that online just looks better visually as well. And then the other sets will hopefully come throughout the year. So please look out for that. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us as well. The last thing that I can think of for the new year is we are in a discussion about whether we should do an errata for cards. And if we do an errata, it would likely be very reserved and a very low number of cards, like a handful. And they're mainly just cards that have power issues or that are causing issues that we have designed, not the original 5 cards. And we would release those probably this year as well, just to kind of make the game a little more balanced this year. I don't know if you two have quick thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think there's a big difference with errataing that makes it probably a lot more difficult than what the listeners might be thinking. With your banned and restricted, it's very easy yes, no vote. But with the errata, it's very easy to go, yeah, we designed a card that maybe is a little bit problematic and it needs to change. It's easy to do the it needs to change part. It's hard to do the to what part, because banned and restricted, it's just, yep, okay, ban it. Errataing something, we need to change it to something else. And that can be the part that will probably be most of the conversation if we ever do go about erratas.
Yeah, and I do want to say that if we do errata, it's going to be like the cost needs to increase, or we need to change the timing of the effect or something. It's not going to be like a total rework of a card. It would be a slight adjustment that we just missed in test playing, and that after watching everybody play and playing with for the past year, we now see, oh, we need to change in this small way to make it balanced. So it'll be smaller changes, but yes, definitely difficult to make sure that we balance it correct the second time.
Because I don't think anyone wants to see a third errata or a second errata of a card.
Yeah, no, at that point I would just vote to ban it personally. But since we made them and we have the files, we can make some quick edits, especially if they're small enough. So those are kind of the plans for 2025. I'm super excited about following up 2024, excited with just everything we're doing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just really excited for what 2025 is going to hold and the new things that are going to be coming. Any last thoughts about the next year?
It definitely feels exciting.
Yeah.
It is also Woman's way of being excited.
Yeah. You can hear the excitement in my voice.
Okay, awesome. Well, with that, we will wrap up this episode. Thank everybody for listening to our wrap up of 2024 and our thoughts about 2025 and what we kind of want to do. If anybody has any thoughts, please engage with us in Discord. You can send us an email. If you have anything that you would like to help with, you're welcome to reach out. And if it's something that we need the help with, we are welcome to accept it. That is how we got somebody to help us with the HD remastering of the original sets to finish that up. So please reach out to us. Follow us on all of the links listed below. There's a lot of them now. We also, quick side note, we are going to restart our Instagram page. We're going to use the exact same one that we used before, but we're going to start actively posting on it now. And when we use artwork for some of the cards, a good example of this is drawing the sword. You may only get to see a part of it because we shift the image or we enlarge it or whatever. And drawing the sword actually has more on it, but when we changed it from an item to a spell, we shifted how the art was placed in the frame. So you're going to get to see a lot of the arts that people have drawn and see the entire art as intended, as opposed to what we ended up fitting into the frame. So follow the Instagram as well. That's going to have a lot of cool stuff. And with that, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you later.
Peace.
Bye.